Bryan Johnson wants to be immortal. You've probably heard that. But here I want to go a little deeper. And I want to go deeper not only into his immortality, but also into his quest for attention, which is the thing he's definitely getting. He had a big New York Times profile. He did the Jubilee debate, and then he just did shrooms and got a lot of attention for that. In this video, I want to talk about this bait and switch technique he uses, where he does something totally outrageous and embraces the outrageousness of it, and then, as you go a little deeper, which he wants people to go, you realize that it's not actually as outrageous as you thought it was. He draws you in. Despite all this attention, I do think Bryan Johnson is losing in a macro sense. I'll get there. Part of the trick of the attention economy is people paying different types of attention to you. Some people will just have heard of you and dismiss you, while others will take your stupid supplement. Let's start with his immortality pitch. He talked about his quest to be immortal by 2039. On its face, that sounds totally absurd. But then, look at what he means by immortality. He means that his biological speed of aging would be 0. Do I believe that Bryan Johnson will actually achieve immortality? Probably not. But do I believe that he can put all his biomarkers that he tracks extensively into some algorithm that will say his speed of aging is 0 by 2039? That seems not that crazy. His boners are a prime example of this bait and switch. He admits it in a podcast here.
We reduced my thymus age by 7 years, right? That's probably one of our biggest accomplishments.
Gotcha.
No one cares. What people care about is boners.
People just aren't that interested in the complex science of de-aging. But people love hearing about boners. And if you can distill science to boners, you get clicks.
And so I said to my team, like, okay, then what would it take for me to have the most measured penis in the world?
He uses this yes and technique, which he describes in this podcast clip.
Always yes and. Never no but. Just, when somebody pokes fun of you, the best move is always to yes and. Play along, be the butt of the joke, have a good laugh at yourself.
Rather than clapping back at people by saying he's right, he just embraces their critique. Take this example from his reading mean tweets video.
Literally looks like a ghost. Boo. I always wanted to be Casper the Friendly Ghost. I always thought he was such an epic character when I was growing up. Now that I resemble him, I'm pretty excited about it.
He doesn't say, no, ew. He says, Casper the Friendly Ghost is really cool. This is an idea from improv, which I've actually done some of, so I can maybe shed some light here. The reason you want to yes and is because you create a consistent reality. In our fractured political times, it feels like we're all living in different realities. But if you yes and, then you allow things to be more entertaining and interesting. Another example of this yes-anding comes from this Wired article. When he's asked, basically, do you have an eating disorder? He says, I would be the first person to be self-deprecating and be like, this guy's got issues, unquestionably. Another example of this embrace comes from his famous blood injection.
Science is actually pretty fascinating. Regular transfusions of the blood of a younger, physically fit donor can significantly retard the aging process.
He starts the video with the Blood Boy clip from Silicon Valley. He doesn't just embrace his status as the kind of weird billionaire that Silicon Valley loves to make fun of. He clickbaits with it. And then you're drawn into this video, and I watched the whole thing, and it's like, not that interesting. It feels like a doctor's appointment. The culmination of all this yes and media training is this CNN interview, which you can tell he prepared for extensively. And I gotta say, he looks pretty young in this. Probably some of it is the makeup and lighting. The structure of this interview is the interviewer bringing up something outrageous, either that he's done or said or related to the political climate, and Bryan Johnson responding by saying something along the lines of, get your sleep and eat your vegetables.
What is your message to the administration and specifically to President Trump?
Yeah, I think that sleep is the most underrated aspect of health.
Maybe the most useful thing you can get out of Bryan Johnson is his emphasis on resting heart rate before bed.
The fact that there are such huge disparities in income related to health outcomes.
Yeah, you know, the most powerful thing anybody can do that does not require money is to lower the resting heart rate before bed.
Because we've all heard, don't eat before bed, don't go on your screens, etc., etc. But distilling it to this one idea of, oh, it's just your heart rate, has actually helped me get better sleep. But then the interviewer asks about RFK.
And what do you make of some of the vaccine skepticism, his sort of shunning of established science?
Yeah, I love that he is making a specific effort to try to holistically address the nation's health.
And this is where Bryan Johnson goes from yes and to yes and dodge the question.
Do you share some of that vaccine skepticism?
The vaccine, that is such a complicated topic, not one that could be addressed in a soundbite. It is a nuance. This is the thing with science, is it's not reducible to a soundbite.
He loves to distill science into sound bites. Never eat fast food. Does science really tell you to never eat fast food? No. What science tells you is P is less than 0.05. Despite all this, I think he's a valuable voice, partially because he's so outrageous, and partially because he's reasonable in ways that the rest of the culture isn't. We all know that eating vegetables and getting sleep are good, yet most of us don't do it. So having someone who can get my attention by talking about his boners and tracking his boners in my feed, and then when it comes down to it is just reminding me to get sleep, is kind of helpful. I want to end by talking about how in some way Bryan Johnson is just objectively losing. He has 1 million subscribers, which is nothing to scoff at. But how many McDonald's are there? The first thing he likes to mention when asked about his movement is AI, which comes from a loony tech bro Silicon Valley strain. If we accept the premise that AI will do remarkable things, it seems inevitable that it's going to be used to create remarkable things that kill us. Not just AI-generated YouTube shorts or AI-generated video, but also AI-enhanced cigarettes and AI-enhanced alcohol. If you accept Bryan Johnson's premise, things start to get really depressing really fast, which is why it's such a miracle that he's an optimist. To longevity, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe.